Hey guys, so this episode of Be Kind was actually recorded in November with Dave of Gathering of Fools. And when we recorded it, it was in the beginning of stages of me wanting to do a podcast. And we had decided that my podcast name would be Many Masks. We mentioned that in the beginning. So when you jump into this and you hear that and you are confused, that's what the podcast was originally going to be called. It was going to be called that because of the way that we show up and try to mask how we're feeling. And this podcast specifically was kind of born from that feeling. This one was recorded in light of how we go through hard things very individually. My hard thing in this podcast was a breakup. And this breakup was so hard for me because the man that I had chosen, my ex, was the man I was going to spend the rest of my life with. So this podcast is me struggling through that. And I should also say that this podcast was my struggle. And in no way is this relationship advice or the way that I describe how I walked through it what I think you should do. This is here specifically for the hopes that you won't feel alone if you're going through something that's really hard for you. Relationships in general are hard. And this one was hard for me specifically and my ex specifically because we were going through struggles that we didn't talk about. And in that, we lost everything that we had. So when you listen to this now, it's going to be kind of weird for me and for you because you're in your own place with your struggle and I'm definitely in a different place with this struggle as well. When you're listening to this, also very notable that none of it was recorded in a bitter place. I have no hate in my heart for the person that I went through this breakup with. I respect him, and if you're listening to this now and you heard music in the beginning of it, he recorded that music for me to put in here. So, each person goes through their pain very personally. So wherever you are in the middle of your pain or wherever you meet pain at again next, know that it's okay to go through it however you need to go through it. And just because this chapter of your life may be over or this chapter has ended and you never wanted it to be over or maybe you never wanted it to be written, that doesn't mean that your story's over. Let me know what you think. Send me some memos. Good luck, guys. Be kind.
Are we ready?
I think so. Are we ever really ready for anything?
No.
I think that you just get ready by leaping and then
and hope a parachute
building a plane
pops up.
all the way.
God damn it! I left my parachute. Should say this is Gathering of Fools, and we have Amanda Gill back, and this is the first one we have done for Gathering of Fools in a long time, and been quite a while since you've been on any of the podcasts because you did the one.
Yeah.
We should state it's pretty late at night. We decided to do this after work.
It is 14 minutes past midnight.
Oh, that's way past the bedtime.
That's way past. I'm usually in bed by 10:30. And
I usually get home at like 10:30, 11 o'clock. So I'm usually up for a little while.
Yeah.
But, I don't normally do a podcast this late. But
I've never done a podcast this late. It's my second podcast, though.
But we had a bunch of stuff we wanted to go over because we are going to start setting you up with your own podcast.
Hey.
That we're going to call, you're going to call Many Masks with Amanda Gill.
Yes, Many Masks.
You're going to we set up a new studio area that's separate from this one. Same building, same house. But it's going to be specifically for Gathering of Fools and Many Masks. We'll have logos and everything coming out eventually, some point.
Yeah.
And are you sure how soon we're going to start it? I mean, because you got to line up guests and whatnot.
Yeah, I'm not sure how soon. It's just kind of crazy thinking about I don't know, 2 years ago I was encouraging you to start a podcast. And
yeah.
Now I'm like, wait a minute.
Why am I not doing a podcast?
Why have I not done a podcast yet? Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely pushed me to start this one, and I'm glad you did. It's something I take real joy in. Like, wouldn't care if 2 people listen, no people, I'd probably still keep doing it.
Yeah, for sure. It shows.
Yeah, I do appreciate the push, because I probably would have I kept saying things like, oh, well, if I can just find some guy who will do all the technical stuff that I don't know how to do, then I'll do it. And I just kept finding reasons to not do it, kind of like a mask.
Yeah.
And then I eventually just taught myself how to do all of those things and was like, fuck it, let's go.
I think that's what happens to all of us, though. We come up with like this long list of things. It's like, well, when this happens, I will do this.
Right. Yeah.
And all of those are really just like procrastination a little bit.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Have you read the book? I don't know if I sent it to you or not. The War of Art. Have you?
It's so funny. I literally it's on my nightstand right now. I read like the first couple pages the other night.
Yeah.
Before I fell asleep. But that's the book I'm going to start reading now. Yeah.
Yeah. A friend of mine recommended it to me. Shoot, probably like maybe March or April. And then I finally dug into it during, quarantine. Yeah. And it was really good. It's about procrastination, though.
Yeah. As usual, I've heard about it on the Joe Rogan podcast.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, that's so funny you brought that up. Yeah, it's literally, I just started it like 2 or 3 nights ago, because I'm the king of procrastination for sure. I come up with a million excuses like, well, you know what? I'll start this next week.
Yeah.
And then when that week comes, I was like, I meant the following week. I didn't mean this week.
Yeah, I forgot I had all these other things happening this week. Yeah. Maybe next week.
Yeah, I forgot that I was like in the Super Bowl on Madden on PlayStation and that I had this extra beer. I might as well get rid of the beer here before I do this other thing.
And I'm going to have to drink it all to get rid of it.
So that's just the way it is.
Yeah,
so next week. And then it's like, oh, well, God, I'm still in the playoffs on Madden and I'm out of beer, so I should probably buy more beer.
So I can get through Madden.
Yeah. Because who plays Madden without beer?
In the book, they call it resistance.
Yeah. That's in literally the first couple pages.
Yeah, your resistance is like
massive
on you.
Yeah.
Surrounding you.
Weighs on me constantly.
You are wearing it.
Yeah, that's actually a resistance shirt.
Yes.
It's on the tag.
It's made of resistance.
Clothing by resistance. It's actually something I really struggle with quite a bit, because I don't know, it's just the mentality I've always had, like if I do this, how's it gonna go, how's it gonna look, and then I'm like, I need to focus more, which means I probably should keep that fridge without beer and not really drink too much. I'm like, did you do a bourbon podcast? But I'm gonna start limiting it hopefully to the podcast Bastards of Bourbon for a while, just to get things focused, because I took on another fucking project. Like, I needed another one of trying to write a movie script that I've sat down twice and done, and then I found my distractions.
That you're gonna love that book. It's literally everything you're saying to me right now, which I mean, like, I forget how to apply the principles of the book too, but it's just about creative people in general and how we are bombarded with all these, just spoiler alert if you haven't read this book yet, but how we're always bombarded with all these ideas, and resistance shows up in different ways, like distractions and self-doubt. And
well, and that's even the way my mind operates. Like, when you first got here, I was like, yeah, so what do you think of this? I was playing Madden, working out, watching a podcast while editing and posting podcasts,
which I really want to know how that looked.
There's a lot of movement.
Were you like...
So I put the podcast on the small TV here that you saw that I was watching, and then I play Madden to the point of like, okay, I got a touchdown, so now I have to do one of the sets of this workout, and then after I do that, then I go over to the computer and I'm like, has this uploaded yet so that I can do this part of the editing? And around we go.
So you at least like press play on one thing and then you pause it and then move to the next.
Yeah, except for the podcast.
Except for the podcast.
Yeah, that I just leave on the whole time.
Yeah.
Sometimes it gets real bad if there's like a football game on I want to watch, because then I'll like play Madden, do the workout with the football game on while listening to a podcast.
That happens to me when I read books though too. Yeah. I just had this conversation with somebody else the other day. Sometimes I read a book, and that's the big reason I listen to things instead of physically reading them. Like, I'll listen to audiobooks, because I'll be reading and I'll notice an entire thought process happening and I'm still reading.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what, Amanda, what did you just read?
Right.
Yeah. You're thinking about
Something
cleaning your car out. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, see, that's what's bad for me with trying to listen to books. If I try to listen to a book, I'll start listening to it and be like, I need to clean the basement.
Oh,
and then I
that's
just go away from it. And I'm like, oh, fuck, I forgot I was listening to that book.
Take it with you.
But then I'm not paying attention to it at all.
Oh, really? See, I don't know, maybe it's a female thing, but like, that's like, I'm in my prime when I'm like washing dishes and listening to a podcast or like functioning and listening.
Like a regular podcast, I can do it with, but like a book, I feel like I need to absorb so much that I'm not good with that. And
Depends
like even
on what book too.
True.
Yeah.
And even when reading, because my mind does work similar to yours, I end up being like, I read a page, I'm like, hold on, I need to go back and read that page.
Do it again. Yes. Yeah. And you almost have to like in English when they would teach you a word and then you have to use that word in a sentence. You have to like read a page and then be like, okay, how can I apply this to my life? Let's read this again. Oh, it makes sense now.
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you, it's what's the hardest books for me to read. Well, it's really just the one Stephen King book. I've read like his short story book, set of books in one book. But I started trying to read one of his other books, and he just uses these words. Yeah. And you're like, what is that? And then it'll be like, I'm just gonna make up a random word like Blinterstaff, and you're like, what the fuck is a Blinterstaff? And
you have to go look it up.
And then you look it up, and it's like satchel. And I'm like, why not just say satchel?
Yeah. What's the word? Wait, I gotta look this up now because it was one of those words that I really needed to like. It was in this book, and I was like, what does that even mean? It meant hairy. Now I gotta look it up. Synonym for hairy.
Synonym for hairy.
Yeah, and the book said, let's see, hirsute. That's it.
Hirsute?
And I don't even know if that's how you pronounce it. It's HIRSUTE.
See,
and the books literally said like a hirsute man, and I was like, what does that mean? Like a mysterious man, like intriguing man, hairy.
No, hairy.
Like just
gross man.
Hairy. Like why couldn't we have just said hairy?
Like actually, can we just get rid of that word?
Yeah.
Let's just throw that word away.
Let's find out where that word came from.
Let's get that out of the dictionary. We don't need it.
We don't. Latin. Yeah. Like everything else.
It sounds like her suit, like she's wearing a suit.
And that might not be how you pronounce it. Maybe it's like hirsute or
hirsute.
It's now Spanish.
But one thing we wanted to do is we did want to go over the fact that you're going to be doing a podcast. You will have your own feed on all the different platforms. You also have a YouTube channel.
Yes.
But then there was another thing that you wanted to talk about. Correct?
Yes. You're looking at me like, are you?
It's like you got nervous about it for a second. Like, hold on. Wait, we're doing this?
Yeah. So I've reached out to Dave since I had sat in on Gathering of Fools for the first time. Was like, man, like that was so much fun. Like people really liked that. I have people messaging me still, however many months ago that was, saying, hey, I just finally listened to your podcast and like thank you for sharing this specific thing. It helped me. And I was like, wow. Like, so over the last few months I've been messaging Dave like, Dave, I need to start a podcast. Hey Dave, I thought about this for the podcast. Hey, I think I should do this. And I had finally decided to actually do it and set up, I started getting into the website and logo and all that stuff and what I was going to create, what my content was going to be like, picked a name. And then the day before I was going to come over here and meet with you, my boyfriend broke up with me.
Yeah, kind of. You seemed like it was kind of out of the blue too.
Looking at it now, it maybe wasn't so out of the blue, but it felt out of the blue because I just didn't think that that's the path that we were on. Yeah. But so I text Dave and I was like, Dave, I don't think I'm coming over today. My world just completely changed. So, in the it hasn't even been 2 weeks yet.
And you guys were living together and everything.
Yeah. So this was on the trail. Like I thought our next step was a ring, not a breakup. So, in this very fresh stage that I'm in, I messaged Dave and I was like, Dave, I think I need to podcast about this breakup. And he was like, well, I'm always down for whatever you're down for, but are you sure? Yeah. And, I was like, I don't know. Let me think about it. And
because the first time you did it, you were very nervous about being vulnerable in the first place about
just life.
Just life in general.
Yeah.
And now this is going to put you obviously in a very
I'm
vulnerable
already
spot.
shaking. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what made me want to talk about it is that I have really kind of tried to teach myself through all the things I know about yoga, all the things that I've learned about just our chemical makeup of our brain, like neuroscience and stuff. Like all of the things that I've learned about actually healing is that you have to sit in it. So this hard thing that I'm sitting in, I have also come into contact with 3 people specifically recently that are like, oh my God, I'm also going through this thing. And they were people that I didn't expect it, just like me. So I'm like, okay, if I know 3 people, those 3 people know 3 people that could listen to this and maybe get some comfort from it. And the world's a hard place to be in right now in general. So.
Oh, man, without a doubt.
Yeah.
And it seems like, breakups and divorce and everything on the rise with everything with COVID and everything, being stuck in the house with a person and you can't get away.
Yeah.
For what we always like to talk about masks, it brings down those masks pretty quickly.
Yeah. I think that people were faced with, oh my God, like, this is the person I chose to spend all this time with. Do I actually like them? And a lot of hard things came out this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. About ourselves in general. Do I like myself enough to sit in the house with myself?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I think should always be everybody's first step, because I mean, how much are you going to be able to put into a relationship with somebody else if you're not that comfortable with yourself?
Yeah. And I think that that's another big thing that people were faced with this year. Like, oh my gosh, like, who am I without the identity of my job?
Yeah.
Or taking care of this person if I can't leave the house, or, all these identities that we attached ourselves to were stripped from us.
Yeah.
And then we're left with what? Figuring ourselves out. So. Yeah.
This has been a big year for me trying to figure myself out. It's been rough because, had to move because of COVID, lost my job, everything like that. And I had to move to a much smaller space, which still isn't completely put together, which I've decided to pretty much turn into a studio with a kitchen, kind of a kitchen, a bathroom, and a bedroom.
Yeah.
And the bedroom might be the most put together thing in the whole house. So I think a lot of people are taking a lot of self-reflection out of this, hopefully, instead of avoiding it, because alcohol sales are also through the roof. I have participated in that.
Few. If you're just listening to this and you're not watching the video, there are, safe to say, like 100 bottles of bourbon
pretty close
surrounding us. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and Amanda is sober, so it's like, oh, yeah, sure, there's bourbon, whatever.
Dave is sober right now.
Yeah, you're sober for this minute. Yeah. No.
We'll see how it plays out.
Yeah.
But you did really want to talk about the breakup. We didn't really get into specifics about what you wanted to talk about. I'm sure some of it might be personal experience, but I think you're trying to go for like an overall so people can relate to it. Yeah,
I'm going for like a breakdown of like how I'm handling it, because I feel like it's something that no one talks about. Mm-hmm. Like you see movies and people are just crying on their couch, and there's like containers of Chinese food and pizza all over the place and whipped cream and.
Why are you describing my house?
I mean, you cleaned it up when we started. No, but there's like this stigma around breakups and like how you shouldn't deal with it. And I think that if I can kind of like, one of my things that I just like to do is like strip things down and be vulnerable and honest about it. And I don't know how else to live. So if I can do that out loud, maybe it'll help somebody. Yeah. I don't know how you want to lead into it. Yeah. I mean, I guess I thought about this earlier and I was like, okay, this is how I'm going to lead into it. And then I didn't write it down. So, how do we start this? If you're listening to this and going through a breakup, or you're going through like really just loss in general, first of all, I'm sorry. Like, it sucks. And nothing I say is going to make any of that better, but maybe it'll let you feel a little bit less alone, because that's something that's helped me a lot recently. I've had people reaching out to me. The people that have stepped up in my life to be here for me recently have completely changed things for me. So that's kind of what I want to do with this. So if you're struggling, maybe just saying I see you helps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I secondly think that going through hard things like this, like hard things in general, we often want to do the like masking and avoiding and distracting. And while those things are sometimes good, it's sometimes good to distract yourself for a little while so you can remind yourself there is a real world outside of this darkness.
Yeah.
Avoiding it is not going to help you in the long run.
Not at all. I was telling you, I recently had a conversation with somebody, and she's like, I've got these things that I need to deal with, but I'm scared to deal with. And I told her that I think the best way to do it is to talk about those things open and honestly. Mm-hmm. And I think, for the distractions, people put on a fake smile, try to act like everything's fine. So a lot of people will go out to bars and drink and just try to party with their friends, or just try to constantly be doing something, even if it's not drinking or going to the bars, just to keep their mind off of it. Yeah. When really, in order to deal with it, you're going to have to keep your mind on it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and when you, like you say, keep your mind on it, I really think that there's two things that can happen, and the keeping your mind on it can go two different ways. And the first way is kind of like what hits you first, like what happens in your brain those first 3 to 4 days after the bad thing happens, whether it's you're grieving a loss of a loved one, someone has passed away, or you're dealing with a breakup or a divorce or the loss of a child, like whatever you're dealing with, all of the things that hit your head first are like, how much change is going to have to happen. Oh my God, what did I do wrong? Like, am I an awful person? You start blaming yourself, and then you what if all of these situations, and like keeping your mind on those things is going to kind of like unravel you more. Yeah. But to like, I guess putting your mind on it in a way that you can like accept the darkness, like accept the grieving and the process that you're going through, has to look like you being honest with yourself about what's actually happening. Yeah. Instead of like romanticizing this idea. And I think that that's way easier said than done. Absolutely. I have a voice note in my phone of, I think I titled it One More Day. Like sometimes I have things in my head and I know that I'm going to want to reference them later. So I just like talk into my phone. And the topic I guess I'm leading with is like, like what happens when you go through a breakup, whether you're the one breaking up or you're the one getting broken up with, like what happens in those first 4 days. And I'm sure you have some stuff to add on this. So. Oh yeah.
I'm sure I'll be jumping in. Yeah. I've been through a few bad breakups. Yeah. The last one I still, I haven't seen anybody since. I've actually, been single and pretty much celibate for a number of years since, actually, just because I chose to go on the reflection of myself, and I need to be more comfortable with myself before I can get into anything.
Yeah, give to somebody else. Yeah. Yeah. So, I'm on day, let's see, what day is it? Just for reference here. I am on day 12 post breakup. So, let's get into like the beginning of grieving and like what that looks like
for you in particular.
For me,
and
yeah.
Maybe relates to other people.
And I also want to say, like, I'm not going to say like this isn't a podcast to say this is what happened in my relationship and this is what I think you should also apply to your relationship. I'm also not going to tell you personal details. That's not going to happen because I respect the person that I'm going through this breakup with, and there's no hate. I have no hate in my heart.
Animosity.
Yeah, no. Yeah. So this isn't. If you're like waiting for like juicy details, you can just stop listening now.
This isn't the drama podcast.
No, this is not a. This is no drama. Like this is like how to get through hard shit. Podcast. So so just stop listening if you're like waiting for some kind of drama. So to generalize, in this specific situation, I had my mind set on the future, so I was working really hard to better myself and try to put in effort to better the relationship, like I was just pouring. I was really like putting in a ton of effort in multiple areas, plus running a yoga business, working a second part-time job, and being a mom, as well as dealing with like past trauma and stuff like that I've been like trying to work on. So when this breakup happened, it was a slap in the face because I thought that my ex and I were on the same page. I thought we were both on, no matter what, we're going to make this better. Like, no matter what, you work on you, I'll work on me. Let's work on this together, and like, this is our end goal.
And continue to grow. Yeah.
So, just the week before the breakup, we were looking at property for a house. Like, so it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought I remembered you telling me that. Like, oh yeah, we're looking at maybe moving into a new house or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, just to set the stage for like where I'm coming from with this. So, in the day, that night of the breakup, all of the things that were going to have to change. I was living in his house. I was renting a place before I moved in with him of my own. He asked me to move in with him. I was dead set on he was the one for me, so I moved in with him with my daughter. And so that night of the breakup, all these things are happening in my head, like, oh my God, like I got rid of a lot of my stuff. I'm living in his house. Like, Alira lives here. Like, oh my God, Alira lives here. like all of these things are just overwhelming you, and your heart is breaking at the same time because you're going to have to say goodbye to this portion of your life. You're going to have to say goodbye to this idea you had in your head of what was going to happen. Plus, just, you love this person. Like, you don't want to like sever this, thing. So that feeling in your heart that just wants to like cave in your chest.
Right. So you're dealing with an immense amount of sadness, and at the same time, like,
trying to replan my life.
What am I going to do?
Yeah.
Like, where am I going to lay my head down tonight or tomorrow night or whenever that time may be?
And just rapid fire.
Yeah.
And then also on top of that, this was at a time during a pandemic where my yoga studio might have had to close the next week because we were unsure if things were going to close back down again. And I'm thinking, oh my God, like, I'm not going to have that. Like,
everything. Have that income.
Yeah. And I've been on edge since the pandemic and quarantine has happened. Uncertain things make me really nervous from just past issues that I've had.
Yeah.
So things that are uncertain and I can't make sense of make me really nervous. So that makes me more anxious. So I've just been on edge in general, on top of all the heartbreak and all that stuff. So, you go through that thing, that night of that pain, that hard thing that you find out that day, and you wake up all night long reminded, like, oh my God, that was not a bad dream.
Yeah.
And like you're reminded.
Like, you're hoping like tomorrow I'm going to wake up and everything's just going to be back to normal. Everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And it's just not the case.
It's just like you're like sitting in the ocean, like tied up, and waves are just smacking you.
Where the fuck is my boat?
Yes, where is my boat? Oh, I don't have one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, how you process those things that just smack you in the face like repetitive waves is, there's no good way. You have to, and I say have to. You don't have to do anything. Let's just get that out in the clear right now. However someone tells you have to handle something, you need to do what you need to do.
Right.
Even if that's avoiding your emotions for the first portion. There's been countless relationships that I've been in that anger and like hate have gotten me through the heartbreak to where I like didn't feel it.
Right.
And there's some of those heartbreaks from years ago that I like just dealt with recently because I was like, oh yeah, like that was really shitty of me. I left in like all of this haste and I never actually dealt with my emotions.
Yeah.
So the point I'm getting at is that if you sit and you let the waves smack you in the face,
you're gonna drown.
Yeah, but like you gotta drown for a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have to go through somewhat of a grieving period, like we said, kind of like getting through to acceptance and then growth.
Yeah. So I think that just wave feeling smacking me in the face was happening for like at least 4 days.
Yeah.
And one friend in particular, I immediately called her because I knew that if I was like sobbing and just a disaster, she wouldn't mind.
Yeah.
So for 2 days, I sat at my friend's house and she made me tea and just listened to me cry. Like, and she was the best friend because she had nothing but understanding. There wasn't any like, F him, he's the worst. And there also wasn't any like, oh, you poor Amanda. She was just listening.
Yeah.
So find you a friend that's just going to listen to you.
Absolutely.
And make you tea.
And make you tea.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, you're the way you deal with it is much different than me. Yeah. It's not going to be tea.
Well, okay, so let's talk about that then. Let's talk about how alcohol is going to just, first of all, alcohol is a depressant.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. I'm not against alcohol. I think that it is something different for every individual. But alcohol across the board is a depressant.
Right.
It's going to dump serotonin and dopamine, and then it is going to flatline your serotonin and dopamine.
Yeah.
After the initial dumping. So then it's going to make all the bad go away for a little bit, but then there's not going to be any serotonin and dopamine production
to get you through
after the buzz goes away.
Yeah.
So then what's bad is going to return, and there's not going to be anything to make it a little better.
And what happens
chemically in your brain.
Right. And what happens with that is a lot of people end up stuck in a pattern of that buzz, that drunk that gives you that dump of serotonin where you feel good, and then you flatline. So then you're like, well, I'm going to go and I'm going to drink again.
I'm just going to drink again. Yeah. And that's where addiction comes in.
Because that's when I feel better.
Yeah.
Is when I drink.
Yeah.
And then you just keep repeating that cycle.
Yeah.
And
then
you're not dealing with anything.
That repetition of cycle actually creates neural pathways in your brain that are literally like canyons. So every time you deal with a hard thing, you're like, oh, alcohol.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah.
And it really ends up creating more problems. Like if you're dealing with a lot of stress and you just keep drinking, that stress isn't going to go away.
No.
Because you're not dealing with anything.
Yeah.
You're hiding from it.
Yeah. So let's talk about coping mechanisms. After that 4-day period, I finally had to like look at myself in the mirror and say, okay, all right.
That's enough.
That's enough. And I
do just want to say real quick, because like you said, anybody that tells you have to do something, again, I just want to clarify real quick, that's not what you're doing. You're telling people how you deal with it.
I'm telling you how I dealt with it.
In hopes that maybe it will help somebody else.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing here.
Yeah.
All right. Now go ahead.
Yeah. So those first 4 days, I just cried, like basically nonstop. And the second thing that I did that I think really helped me is that if someone were to come up to me and ask me how I was or ask me how my weekend was, I was honest.
Yeah.
Brutally honest, whether they were ready for it or not. And I didn't just like dump on them.
Right.
But anyone that asked me how my weekend was or how I was doing, I said, I'm not really that great. Trey broke up with me on Friday.
Yeah.
And that was just my answer. And, you know, I would deal with people's reactions as they came, and some people were just like, oh, I'm sorry. And then they would like run. Just
somebody's calling me.
Somebody's calling me. Yeah. I think my pizza's here.
Hello?
You're in your car. What do you mean your pizza's here?
Yeah. Your phone didn't even ring.
Yeah. And then other people were shocked, and that's another hard thing that can come up. You know, you sometimes might not want to say, you might not want to tell the truth because you don't want to have to deal with someone else's reaction. You don't want to have to then like. Sometimes
people accidentally, even though it's not really turning it into about them, but they're like, oh my God, what are you talking about? And they're like, well, what about this? And then what about this?
Yeah.
And like, hey, well, easy.
And then you're having to like explain yourself, and that makes it harder. Then you're crying harder, and then it's just a mess, and you need ice cream. And yeah. So. You
have all these nice like homey like ice cream, tea, I'm like bourbon, beer.
My grandma was a nurturer, and like food fixed anything.
Yeah.
So I think that's where that comes from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do eat a good bit.
I do eat a good bit. But I actually, funny enough, we'll get into that another time. I'm not even going to start on that now. But now it's lost. So I was very honest in those first, 4 or 5 days. And I didn't hold back. And I think that really helped me kind of like, you have a process you have to go through. And the more you put it off, the longer it just multiplies. It's like interest on your credit card.
Yeah.
You keep putting it off and it's just going to keep multiplying. And then you're, $50,000 in debt, 50,000 emotions in debt.
Yeah.
So instead of going through the debt process, I just kind of like let it flood.
Yeah.
All at once. And I think that's why I'm talking to you right now without crying. I think that I, worked through my emotions, and after the 4 or 5 days of just crying and calling my friends and saying, hey, I don't really want to say anything right now. I just need you to say like, the sun is shining.
Right.
It's more than 40 degrees outside, so it's not too cold. Like,
right.
You have pretty hair.
Yeah, pretty hair.
Yeah.
I like your sweatshirt.
Oh yes, okay. Or like just say like, just say things to me that reminded me like the world is real. What I'm dealing with is a small problem on the grand scheme of things. Like it's gonna be okay. Right.
Like you still have a long story ahead of you.
Yeah, for sure. Like, and that's what brought me to This has been a really big thing in my life in the past year specifically. Like what has been good for me in the past will always be good for me in the future because it's part of who I am. So things that, let me break that down, and I'll use just a reference for myself because I don't know you. All the listeners, I have no idea what your things are, but my thing is fitness. The gym and yoga have become a coping mechanism for me that is healthy.
I was gonna say definitely a healthy one.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, I am a disaster. I have not really eaten in 2 days, but I'm going to the gym today.
Yeah.
Even if I can't do the workout because it'll remind me who I am. So, if your coping mechanism is alcohol, I don't really think that you should remind yourself who you are with alcohol. But
I am a bourbon drinker. I'm going to do what I do best.
I need a break.
Sorry.
No, I'm just kidding. But you got to pick a thing. You got to pick a thing that reminds you that the world is real. The world will carry on. You are still a good whole human. So the things that have been good in the past for you will still be good. Whether that's like, I don't know, your grandma's cinnamon rolls, or like you have to go bake, or you do you really enjoy playing the violin and you want to go learn a new song or something. Like what's good for you in the past, what has been good to get you through things is always going to be good. So maybe you switch your focus then, instead of that repetition of like, what if I would have been different for him, or what if I would have paid more attention to her, or what if I, all those what ifs that happen in your head, you then direct it to, I need to do this good thing for myself.
Yeah.
And I think that then broke the cycle for me, just focusing on the good and then focusing on like, okay, I'm going to have dinner with this friend tonight.
Yeah.
Because I mean, when you live with someone, for me, I always made sure, and since quarantine has happened, really, I always made sure that I was home. I would say like 79% of the time I was home, had made dinner or had plans for dinner, or would call Chinese and get dinner. Like that was my thing. Like we always shared meals at the end of the day. So for me to be reminded that I no longer have someone to share a meal with was a big deal.
Yeah.
And that was, so I had to have someone to eat with, or have a plan to, or like you text me and you're like, Amanda, are you eating? Like, I will buy you food at the place I work. Please come eat food. Yeah. Just
I believe I said something about feeding you like a baby if I
yes,
had to.
I will feed you. Yeah. And this is something I was going to say before, and then I just didn't want to get sidetracked. Food isn't a good thing for me when I'm physically upset, just like rocked to my core. I can't eat.
Yeah.
I'm nauseous. The thought of food makes me nauseous. So I told Dave I just had my first meal. What day was that? Was that yesterday?
Yeah, it was yesterday.
Yeah, I just had my like first full meal yesterday, and it felt really good.
Yeah.
And I like did a victory dance.
Right.
So that was day 11. I hadn't had an actual full meal in 11 days. I've been like eating protein bars and like trying to get
some kind of sustenance, but
Yeah.
not sitting down and eating a
Yeah.
good meal.
Yeah. You know, take it easy on yourself. If binge eating is your thing, do it. You
Yeah.
want to eat a whole box of Oreos, you're probably going to regret it, but it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Try not to do it day after day.
Yeah, just keep trying your best.
Yeah.
If you eat just one sleeve of the Oreos, I mean, that's better than the whole thing, you know. But you gotta do what you gotta do. So when I started to do the things that were good for me again, I remembered like, oh, you know what? Even though I don't have this person now to eat dinner with, that doesn't mean that I no longer like food.
It doesn't mean I no longer enjoy eating dinner.
Yeah. Like all the first rush of emotions make you think like, oh my God, we used to eat Chinese food together. Now I can't even look at General Tso's.
I could see how that would be heartbreaking.
But yeah, right. But then you're like, no, like, wait a minute. I liked General Tso's before them.
Yeah.
I still like General Tso's.
Yeah. Like,
What is General Tso's?
right.
Yeah.
What is that
Yeah.
sauce?
What is it? Ugh.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's not chicken.
Yeah. And that might be a girl thing. I don't know if that's a girl thing, but it's literally like, I think that females go into a lot of like providing in an emotional way. So we emotionally attach ourselves to things like that. So that's a whole laundry list of things just for girls. Like,
Right.
there's going to be lots of things that you know, that like that was his favorite pen and now you have to throw it away. Like you can't look at that pen anymore.
Yeah. Throw it away or put it in a box in the top of the closet.
And get it out and like write with it when you're sad or something. Yeah, I don't know. So I take it you have a box in the top of your closet full of
No.
No.
I just figured that's something people do.
Yeah.
I don't even have my yearbooks.
Yearbooks.
I don't collect anything but bullshit.
Yeah.
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 Like I actually have way too much stuff, but I don't even know like
Why did I keep Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Not even sentimental stuff
Yeah.
about a girl or anything like that. Honestly, most of the time I'll just get rid of stuff like that. I'm kind of clean slate type. You know what I mean? Especially at the beginning.
I used to be like that. I have been in 1, 2, 3, 4. This would be my 5th time I've lived with someone. This would be the 5th person.
Yeah, I'm probably like 6 or 7.
Yeah. So that's not always common anymore. Or that's not always common now, but it is more common than it used to be for people to like jump the gun and move in together.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I feel like saying 5, that I've lived with 5 people that I thought were the rest of my forever sounds bad. Like I immediately go into like, oh, well, that you're a terrible person for like moving in with those people. And then
I think that's a terrible way to think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but that's just like the doubt thing that kind of like creeps into your head.
Yeah.
I agree with you. It's a terrible way to think. Like it is what it is. It's not good or bad.
Right. It's not good or bad. It just is what it is. And I've always been, I guess, kind of the person that's like, you know, once I reach a certain point, I'm like, if we're going to do this, let's do it.
Yeah.
And
yeah, me too.
Like I'm ready to commit to this. So let's go.
Yeah.
I did want to say real quick, probably my coping, because you said like the box up there. Mine is probably more of, I would always end up going to the bar scene and become single Dave and probably be more promiscuous than somebody should be.
I think that's a guy thing, though.
Yeah.
I think that's what guys do.
Well, and it's definitely like I said earlier on the podcast, I've been celibate for like 2 years, and that was actually just like something I was like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And so it was something that was important to me.
Yeah.
And now that I keep it going, and I can't really say why, except for I feel like I'm at a point now, like I said, I've lived with 6 or 7 people. I'm 38, so I'm like, I'm not doing any of this again unless it's something that like really intrigues me. I don't want to go out like, you know what, this girl seems interested, let's go out on a date. Like, no, I just don't have any desire to do any of that. I want to focus on me, get my stuff done. And I'm for sure a well put together mess. You know what I mean?
Your exterior is.
Yeah, it's just how I am. Like everybody thinks, this isn't. I don't think I'm wrong in saying that everybody sees me as kind of like a happy-go-lucky guy that usually is having a good time with people, smiling, friends with everybody. But I've got my own demons that I keep to myself. That's the stuff that I've been trying to work on before I ever try to get into anything again. I want to be with somebody that also like will help me grow. And push me to do the things that I have that mental block with, where I say, I really want to do this, but you know what? I'll start it next week after I do this, because this is coming up. There's somebody that helps me push through those barriers that I have.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that's really hard in general for different stages of, like when you're 21, you think you know what you're going to do with your life because you're probably in college and you're like, working on the first, yes, I am going to be an engineer. Think
you know who you are.
Yeah.
Or
you think you have to know who you are at 21.
Or you don't even think about who you are.
or you just avoid that altogether.
Yeah.
Which creates issues.
Yeah.
That we won't talk about.
Did it for me
here.
massively.
So yeah. So, like you're in a relationship when you're 21, and by the time that you're 25, you might be somebody totally different.
Yeah.
And then you realize, oh shoot, this person doesn't really line up with what I want to do now, but they lined up with who I used to be. And like you go through breakups like that, and I've been through 2 of those myself.
And I think part of that is like we like to talk about masks. Like you didn't realize it at the time, but you've been wearing this mask for this person.
Yeah.
Because this is who kind of you feel like they want you to be, and then you get to a point where you're like, this is not who I am.
People outgrow people.
Yeah.
And it's really sad to say that, but it's true. And sometimes at first you don't really accept that that's a good thing, but it's not a bad thing to, if you're growing together, that's obviously ideal.
Yeah. I feel, obviously.
And you don't have to be growing in the exact same direction.
No.
You just have to be growing simultaneously and supportively.
That's what I was going to say.
That's what I think.
Supportively. I agree. Yeah.
Your
entire life doesn't have to be completely intertwined.
I could hate blue curtains, and you love blue curtains, but we both like curtains.
Those came with the house.
In that case, get the fucker. Get him out of here. But, what about clean slate? You just said you like clean slate. You're a liar.
But that's you don't have to be completely intertwined in every aspect of your life.
No.
But what you do have to do in a relationship is be supportive.
Yeah.
That is important. You can't, I have a friend that is recently going through some stuff with her significant other or former significant other. And, she really wanted to go back to school and she kept pushing it off. She finally did it. Yeah. And that person now, her significant other, was not supportive of her doing it.
Yeah.
But it's something she has wanted to do for a long time.
That's so hard.
But he feels like he's not part of it. Well, then you either get on board because this is how she is going to grow.
Yeah. And that's a hard thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's so hard because, I'm sure that she felt so sure of him, and because of his own issues in some way.
Yeah.
That he felt like he couldn't be a part of that. It made him scared. And Yeah, that's hard.
But to me, it's just an example of not growing together. Like you don't have to be part of it to be supportive of it.
Right.
And you can both grow.
And I think that's something that comes up so often. Like how much of your life is together and how much of your life is separate. And I think that's a problem I've run into, even just like in friendships. Like, you run into that in workplaces, like work relationships and stuff like that. Like, how much of your life do you share with these people that you work with?
Yeah.
How much of your life with your significant other is together, and how much is separate? And I think that looks a little bit different for everyone. So it's really hard to say like, oh, this is the standard.
Right.
Yeah. I don't think that there is a standard. I think you find someone who it's compatible with, and that's what works. Yeah. That was a really big thing in this past relationship that I was just in. The person that I was with really liked his personal space.
Yeah.
And I have a daughter. You know, I wanted that kind of family time. I wanted some of that personal space of his to be sacrificed to spending with a family, and that wasn't cohesive for him.
Right.
So, I mean, finding someone that it is cohesive with is really important, and you only find that out by trying.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's no way to really figure that out. I'm sure he initially was like, that's how I want to be too, and then he realized, man, it might not be.
Yeah, and you can want to be something and not be ready for it.
Not be ready for it, or just not be able to handle that.
Yeah.
You know that.
And you don't know till you try.
Yeah.
Sadly.
Yeah.
Sadly for me.
Yeah, that's really it.
Yeah.
And you know, in relationships, there's going to be sacrifices.
Yeah.
It's just the sacrifices.
How much are you willing to sacrifice?
And what are you willing to sacrifice?
Yeah.
You know, and those are boundaries you find as you go.
Boundaries. Those elusive MFers.
Those elusive MFers.
I am bad with boundaries. I am 100%. I don't even know how to define a boundary for myself. And I've learned that.
You're saying for yourself, not for you have no issues like respecting other people's boundaries.
Oh, no.
But you don't know what your boundaries are.
Yeah, and I think that's a big topic that came up a lot for.
You know, I hate to do this.
What?
I'm gonna piss my pants.
Oh.
Too many energy drinks, but
Okay.
we're on boundaries.
Okay.
Okay.
Boundaries.
All right. Sorry for that. The bladder of a 90-year-old man. It's because I'm halfway there.
Sad. It's real sad.
Old as dirt. But we were talking about you
Boundaries.
not knowing how to define your own boundaries.
Yeah, so I think that's a thing you go through in your 20s. You don't really learn what your boundaries are until you try different things. And then I am a recovering people pleaser. So that, I mean, when your existence kind of just pulls you to wanting to make other people happy,
Yeah.
you don't have boundaries.
Yeah, I'm real bad about that, especially in relationships.
Yeah.
I try to make the other person happy.
At the expense of yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I end up blowing up because I feel like
Yes.
it's not recognized.
Yes.
And that I'm doing too much.
Same.
And yeah.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people struggle with that in different ways, and they don't recognize that that's the issue, but that's the issue.
Yeah, and it's good to want to please your partner, but you
Yeah.
also have to make sure you're maintaining yourself as well.
Yeah, and that was an issue that we ran into often. He felt like his boundaries weren't respected by him getting to do kind of, you know, whatever he wanted when he wanted to. And I felt like my needs weren't respected because he wasn't showing up for that family time I was expecting. And like, there was just a refusal. We were both being stubborn about that's what he wanted. This is what I wanted.
And did you feel like you were communicating it well with each other, but you just couldn't give up the ground to either of you, or?
I think that we both would bend either way. Like, you know, this month I'd let him go do whatever he wanted and never say a thing about it. The next month he was home all the time with us, spent a mass amount of family time with us, and never wanted to go do anything.
So it's almost like instead of finding a happy medium, you kept going back and forth on extremes.
Yeah. And then you know, you expend yourself for an entire month, and then you're like, well, wait a minute, I want to do what I want to do, and screw you, I'm going to go back and do what I want to do. And then the other person's like, "What? Everything was going so great. What do you mean?" Yeah.
Like,
So
instead of meeting
in the middle
and recognizing like, oh, I see what's happening here. We're doing extreme and extreme instead of figuring out how to balance this.
And there was never an agreement there because
yoga. Balance.
Yeah, right. I know. I should be really good at that.
Hey, we're just human.
Yeah. So, you know, I got super down on myself in the first, you know, this first 4 or 5 days where I was doing this thing where like, well, if I would have let him do this, or if I would have like shut up and not really asked anything of him. And then I was like, Amanda, are you listening to yourself?
Right. Is that how you want to live?
So then this is what I did. I on that 5th or 6th day, I actually put it in my actual journal. I was going to see if it was on my phone, but it's in my actual journal. Guys, if you don't journal. Get a journal, pad and paper, notes in your phone, write things down.
I feel like you're talking to me.
Yeah. So I broke out my journal, and I don't know what made me want to do this, but I was like, this is going to help me. I don't know. It just like was intuitively something I wanted to do. I decided that I was going to write down in facts with as little emotion as possible. What would my life look like if nothing changed? You know, he stayed the same, I stayed the same as we are now. What would my life look like? And
like years down the road.
Yeah, for 10 years down the road, everything was the same.
Yeah.
And would I be happy with that? And when I started writing, I like immediately knew, oh my God, like these things were a betrayal of my boundaries. Like these things were actually not okay.
Yeah.
And not healthy. And not that he's a bad person or I'm a bad person. They just weren't good together.
Right. Exactly.
And
you're not saying he was like purposely trying to poison the situation or hurt you.
No.
It's just
him and his humanness where he is right now, and me working on my stuff right now just was hurting each other.
Yeah.
And I don't think that we were really good friends. Like we're really good at being friends.
Right.
Which is important in a relationship. So that was a hard thing for me to swallow. Like just because we're good friends doesn't mean we're meant to be together right now.
Yeah.
Or ever, you know, whatever the case is. But I think that that's something that can be very easily overlooked when you're in like the heat of like trying to make it work. So this leads me to unless you want to add on this.
No, I'm actually on with you. Yeah.
Yeah. So that leads me into.
Actually, I should say something real quick. So my last relationship, it was so crazy because everything was going good. We actually had. Her car broke down. I knew this was the one, so she didn't really have credit. My credit wasn't great, but we put a car in basically my name for her. I mean, she was the co-signer, I was the lead signer. Oof. And we had one conversation, and she said something like, "Oh, like my sister and her husband and my brother and his wife had put their kids into daycare." And she was like, "My kids will never go in daycare." And all I really said was, "Oh, I don't think you can ever say never." Yeah. Like my mom works, your mom works, right? Your dad works. Yeah. How do we have to figure out if that time comes, how to balance that? Yeah. And maybe I wasn't verbalizing it that great, but something in her head just like snapped to the point of like she was from Toronto where there's Rusty Bowl Taco, which I love. So we were going to see her parents. And I was like, "Can we get Rusty Bowl Taco?" She's like, "Absolutely." So we're driving towards Toronto, and she just pulls into Franciscan Square. She's like, "I'm going to go to Brooklyn Bagel." And I'm like, "So we're not going to go to Rusty Bowl?" She was like, "Well, you can eat. We'll stop there and you can eat there." I'm like, "Well, I'm not going to eat separate from you."
Oh, no.
I'm like, "So I'll just eat here too." Like, that's absurd. And she was like, "No, just get Rusty Bowl." I'm like, "I don't really understand what's happening here, but this is silly."
Because that disagreement happened, then
she wanted to like poison, I guess, everything.
Well, okay, so this is something that's really funny that would show up for me because I'm a people pleaser. So in the relationship that I was just in, I would expend myself past my means. And when he didn't recognize that I was expending myself past my means, because like, why would he? There's no reason he should have recognized that, because
if you're not telling him, because he's not inside your head.
Yeah, he thought I was just a, which I am a giving person, but I mean, like, I was just like at, hand and foot, can I change your socks? Like in the beginning, everything's like that in the beginning.
Find you a woman that'll change your socks.
My friend actually that let me cry on her couch changes her husband's socks. Notice I said husband. He married her. Yeah.
You wifed that one down.
You wifed that one. So when I would And then in my head, I would get like disappointed and mad at him because he wasn't recognizing or also giving me the same thing. Like he was keeping his boundaries in check and I was violating my own.
Yeah.
And that made me mad.
Right.
But I would blame him for it.
But really, you're the one violating your own boundaries.
Yeah, I'm violating my boundaries.
Yeah.
And it had nothing to do with him.
Yeah.
Even though it was for him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, I think a lot of relationships are like that. Men and women.
Yeah.
Do the exact same thing.
Yeah, I agree.
So in your case, she was going to Rusty Bull for you. And after you had that disagreement about childcare,
yeah,
she was like, we can't eat the same thing. I'm not eating that. I'm not eating tacos for you.
yeah.
Asshole.
yeah. I've eaten those tacos plenty. I'm over them.
yeah. Get me a bagel.
yeah. Yeah. It was a really weird experience for me that I like. I was noticing, and I didn't really know how to deal with it other than, well, I'm just going to eat a bagel because we're not going to do this. Like, what, is she going to sit in the car while I eat Rusty Bowl? Or, you know what I mean?
Like, how does that look? And
or am I just going to sit there and eat Rusty Bowl while she stares at me?
I'd rather eat a bagel with her than make it awkward.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that's what it was going to be. It was going to be awkward.
Yeah.
I mean, it ended up being awkward regardless. And, you know, after the breakup, she apologized for that.
Really?
yeah.
No way.
Yeah. After the breakup, we don't talk all the time now or anything, but like we have a friendly relationship now.
Yeah.
And she's, you know, I told you before, like I'm like, good luck, Chuck. She,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
she's engaged and
Yeah.
baby on the way.
Mm-hmm.
So good for her. But yeah, that was just when we were talking about, that, that's just something that ended up popping in my head.
Yeah.
I forget where you were going from there, though.
Oh, I'm glad I actually underlined it and then drew an arrow and
There you
wrote it
go.
down. See?
Perfect.
Journal
Turtle.
it. So yeah, you got nothing on yours.
Sorry, go ahead.
So that's where it's really weird when in a relationship you start, like, things are really awesome in the beginning because, you know, you're both afraid to kind of like fart in front of each other and like do the human things.
You have your masks on.
Yeah, you have your masks on. So, you know, you get into hard things with each other, and then that's when, like, the real, you know, how does this person handle anger? How does this person handle grief? How does this person handle disappointment? How does that make me feel? And you get into all these things, and, you know, that makes or breaks the relationship. So after that relationship is over, if it breaks the relationship, you do this thing. And I mean, I'm assuming that other people do this thing. I did this thing where I romanticized the idea of not only what we were and like, oh my God, I'm losing this like magical time that we had, when really there were equal amounts of times where it was really hard. But I'm only looking at, oh my God, all these things I'm going to miss. And then I'm also, the first week after the breakup, up until the point where I did that journal list of what my life would look like if things had stayed the same, exactly the same as the past few months where it's been hard. Up until that point, I was mourning the loss of an idea I had in my head.
Right.
Of what we were going to be.
About a possible future.
Yes.
Not in actuality.
And I mean, I can only think, now realizing it, like, I can only think for myself. I knew where I was going because of the work that I was putting in to better myself as a person.
Yeah.
But I kind of just placed that on him as well. Like, I thought that that's what he would do as well. Like, if I'm putting in this work, and I think he's putting in this work, like, obviously we're going to be this awesome power couple that have all these awesome things, and we're going to love our life. In
reality, you didn't really have an idea of what his idea of the future was.
Yeah, and I think that that's where communication comes in. Like, if your significant other isn't good at communicating, or if they just don't have an idea themselves of where they're headed, then, I mean, what do you do with that? You know? Yeah. So, that first week or whatever. You know, it might not be a week for you. It might be 2 years for you, but that romanticizing the idea of what you could have been in your head is going to be the death of you if you don't kind of unpack, this is reality, this is the idea that I had. Yeah. Separating the two. So then what I did with that romantic idea that I had of like what we were going to be, this is something that also like really shifted my grieving process. I looked at it, and let me say that I believe that in that like toxic positivity movement that's happening, like people, have you seen that? Like, no. Like toxic positivity. Like if you just think everything will be great, it will be great.
Oh yeah. Like The Secret.
And that's, well, and I don't think that like it's all false. Like I definitely believe that like your outlook on life is how your life ends up. Yeah. But I think that like, you know, it's like if you broke your arm, you wouldn't be like, oh no, it's fine, it's not broken, this thing doesn't hurt. Like, yeah. No, it freaking hurts. You broke your arm. Yeah. So that works for emotional pain as well. Like you're going through something really freaking hard. Yeah. It's okay for it to be hard, but you're gonna have to still go through the hard thing and face the darkness, but you're also going to have to tell yourself that there will be light again. Like there will be, this has a purpose. Yeah. You know, your arm's going to heal again. These things are not going to hurt forever. So you have to sit with it, but then you also have to try to bring some purpose into it.
Right. Try to bring some kind of positivity, purpose. Yeah. Maybe discover, like, it sounds like you discovered plenty about yourself and the way that you handled certain things in the relationship.
Yeah. And so it's like, what can I learn from this?
Yes.
Like, I broke my arm from falling out of a tree. Maybe I shouldn't climb trees anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like,
as corny as it sounds, just like they tell you in like sports all the time, like if you get knocked down, you get back up.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And that's so freaking easy to say. Like by all means, you get knocked down, like stay down for a minute, like lower your center of gravity. You know, feel your heart beat, like it is still beating, but like stay there if you need to.
So like to throw like say maybe boxing into it where you get a 10 count if you get knocked down. Yeah. Like, take 8, take 9. Yeah. However long you think you need. Yeah. You don't have to get up right away.
Yeah. But this isn't the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I did from that like romanticizing idea that I had that we were going to be, you know, this like magical couple, I looked at it like, okay, I could let this idea kill me for the rest of my life, or I could look at it as, maybe this idea only exists for me. This pain exists for me because of what I thought we were. Right. So then I made another list in my journal of thank yous. Thank you for always bringing home the food that we both like to eat.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching that movie that you might not have wanted to watch, but you wanted to watch it because I wanted to.
Right.
Thank you for, like, you know, you bring me slippers home from Aldi's. And no one should buy slippers from Aldi's, but you did that for me, and I loved that.
Right.
So, like, I made this list of thank yous, like pages long of gratitude. Yeah. And that gratitude for the real parts of that idea in my head. There was some truth in it. So I made a list of like, this is why I appreciate you as a human. And even though we can't be humans together, it's okay. I still appreciate you. Yeah. And I think that, I don't know, like, I don't know the science of it or like why gratitude changes something in you, but just being able to accept like somewhere in this grief of, you know, maybe you lost like your mom or something and it really freaking hurts because now you have no one to cry to when you had a bad day at work because your mom would just listen to you babble about anything. Or like maybe you lost a kid, which I don't know what that feels like, and I cannot say any words to make that pain better because I don't understand it. But there is something to learn in this, and you are meant for something that involves this pain.
Yeah.
Some part of you is supposed to become out of this pain.
Yeah. Like, so basically it may seem like a dead end.
Yeah.
Like this is it. But really there's going to be a side road or just another route
this
that you
was
can
always the route for you.
Yeah.
This was always part of the process, you know, and whether you want to like bring, you know, God into it, whatever your religion is, like God has a plan for you. Like I believe that to be true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily religious, but I just always think that anything that's put in front of you, it is always an opportunity to learn.
Yeah.
No matter how hard it is.
Yeah.
You know, and an opportunity for self-discovery, which I think is really probably the biggest thing in life is self-realization and self-discovery. Trying to find out how to be happy with the person that you are.
Yeah. Yeah. So that list of, I mean, about the person that you are, that list of gratitude taught me these are the things that are important to me.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't have to be slippers from Aldi's, but
Yeah.
yeah, like,
Let's get them from Walmart.
yeah. No, I mean, Aldi's has some really cool stuff. Like, I never realized. I'm sure I'm wearing something from Aldi's right now. There's so many things that he came home with from Aldi's that I was like, shut the front door.
Like, this is not from
you
Aldi's.
You did not get this at Aldi's. And it always was the best thing ever. Like, the thing you didn't know you needed.
Right,
like,
right.
Like, yeah, you didn't know you needed a mustache comb, but Aldi's had it.
Yeah.
And it's the best mustache comb you never knew you needed.
I hope he never brought you a mustache comb.
No, I have a few hairs here, but
I feel like we talked about that last
we
time.
we did talk about it, and I don't remember why, but we did. Yeah, I have like 3 hairs of a dark mustache on the left corner of my mouth, and I'm okay with it. I ain't waxing that.
And it doesn't need a comb.
It's staying there. Yeah, no, it doesn't need a comb. I just kind of like lick it and smooth it.
Oh my God. It's like we're creating a dating profile for you.
Slippers from Aldi's, and I have a mustache. Amanda Gill. Most recent bachelorette.
Oh my
No,
God.
I'm never dating again.
And I have a mustache. I'm sorry. Oh my God.
Okay.
Never dating again, huh?
No, it's not true. I mean, I'm sure I'll date again, but that is
right now. It's the
last
furthest thing from your mind.
Oh my God.
As it should be. A lot of people like to jump right into another relationship.
All right, but I was that person.
Yeah.
Like, that's who I, and that's what's so different about my life now than I am a different, more evolved version of myself. You know, there's still a lot of things that are still have always been and will be me, but I don't know. It's so weird. Like I was that person who was like, well, this one sucks. I'll do this one now. This one puts his underwear on backwards, and that's not okay. That's not okay. Obviously this one's going to be better.
Right. I do agree that that's not okay.
Yeah.
Underwear on backwards? Stop it.
That was like the weirdest thing I could have thought of. I don't know, it's really stupid. But I was like a relationship hopper. Like,
yeah.
And that's an identity thing. Like, I always thought that I had to be pouring myself into someone else to be good enough for myself, and that's another, like, you know, personal issue that
almost like you don't know who you are without a relationship.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that a lot of people do that.
I've been there.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's scary to get to know yourself.
Yeah.
Like, to actually, like, sit down in the dark corner of your mind and be like, oh,
yeah,
this is in here.
Oh. Yeah.
When did this get here?
Start looking around.
We have a Ferris wheel.
Right. Whose house is this? The fuck?
I don't even like pink couches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh God, I got stuck with the couch.
Yeah. I got stuck with the couch.
Oh man, Ghost ate it, and I couldn't have been happier. I was like, thank God I can get a new couch. I hated this couch.
Yeah.
I never should have that's a sacrifice I never should have made. Like, she's like, oh, I love this couch. I'm like, all right, let's just get that fucking couch then. Who cares?
Yes.
Terrible couch.
So that brings me to another list. So I was actually having a conversation with another friend, and they said to me, you know, Amanda, like, this might not work for you, but this works for me. whenever I'm going through a breakup and I'm like, you know, going through rejection and like, oh man, like that person had like all these qualities that I really loved, and you're like really feeling down on yourself and crying yourself to sleep at night. They said, I make a list of all the things that really annoy me. Yeah. Like they snored at night. they ate their waffles with ketchup. Like, yeah, no, that wasn't a real thing.
Okay,
I was just, yeah,
Jesus
no. So that
would be like day one I saw that, I'm out of here.
You're a psychopath.
I don't even care if this is my house. I'm leaving.
Yeah, I'll leave. You can have it.
This is your house now. It's fine.
But they said that really, that I didn't do that because I just I'm not a person that, I think if you speak a lot of negativity into the world, you're just.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
It's more of a negative route than a positive route.
But that might help some people.
Yeah.
If that helps you to make a list of, you know, they never put their socks into the dirty clothes, like, have at it.
Maybe that's how you realize that this really wasn't the person for me.
Yeah.
And if that's what it takes, then that's what it takes.
Yeah. And
whatever it takes for you to find your happiness.
Yeah. And sometimes that means just trying things.
Yeah. Short of murder.
Yeah. Please don't.
Please don't.
Please. Yeah. Please don't.
Yeah. No.
Stop it.
Yeah. All right. Sorry.
Your life in jail is not. It's not flattering.
Can't be fun.
Can't be. I knew you were gonna say something like that.
Anyway, good. Continue on.
I think I need a drink of water.
Sorry, sometimes I'm the worst.
Yeah. No, well, we're all a little bit of the worst sometimes. Yeah. So then that brings me to the last list that I made, and that was the list of like, oh, wait a minute. I can actually do these things with my life now, that I'm not in a relationship and have to kind of combine my life with someone else. Yeah. Not that, I mean, there's a lot of things that I still want for my life that were very cohesive with his. Right. And that was a really hard thing for me. But I realized that I don't have to give up those things because I'm not with him.
Right. It's not dependent on him.
No, yeah. Those things were me. Yeah. Yeah. So now I have all these things where like, oh, like I don't have to like fit with his timeline for when this happens now. It can be on my timeline. Yeah. And if I want to do this first, I can do this first. And then if I change my mind back to not wanting to do that first, I can do that.
Yeah. There's a certain amount of freedom.
Yeah. And I have never, I've never done that freedom thing. Yeah. Yeah.
That's one thing I definitely took positive out of that too. Like, I'm not sure if I ever would have done a podcast if I was still with my most recent ex. Yeah. Like, could you imagine me just buying all this stuff and bringing it home? She's like, you spent how much money on what? And you're taking over that bedroom for what? Yeah. And then it ended up being in the living room. Yeah. Imagine that conversation. Yeah. Hey, babe. So I'm going to turn the living room into a podcast studio. Yeah. How do you feel?
You thought you were going to sit here and watch The Bachelorette. That's no longer an option.
Right. You're going to have to watch that in the bedroom. Yeah. Or I can turn this bedroom into a living room.
And please be quiet while you do it.
Yeah, because I don't want to pick you up on the mics.
Get everything that you need out of the kitchen now.
Right.
Don't go to the bathroom.
How dare you?
Yeah. Take a cup. Pee in it.
Yeah, it would have been a lot different. Man, I've basically set it up so that I probably won't be in a relationship for a long time because I don't really have a house as much as I have a podcast studio.
Unless the person that you're with also podcasts.
Correct.
Yeah. So
podcasters out there.
My friend Dave here is looking.
Not really. Leave me alone. Just let me be me.
Don't call me between the hours of now and ever.
Right. If you think you're interested,
look away. Avert your eyes. Oh, yeah. I don't know if guys have a radar for when girls are single. I mean, I haven't really even like posted anything at all that even.
Did you change your relationship status?
I don't even have one of those.
Okay.
It's private. I don't.
Yeah. Like, fuck off. None of your business.
Yeah. No. Yeah. The only thing that I've done that might have been like people would notice is that my pictures now look different because I'm in a different house. Like. Yeah. Maybe they noticed the background was different, so they're like thinking maybe something's up.
Are your DMs blowing up?
Not blowing up, but like there are people in them now, and I'm like, what? Do you guys just sense this stuff? Like, first of all, It's really freaking creepy.
Yeah.
Second of all,
Like, hey, I know you're freshly single.
yeah.
Would you like to not be, or maybe just have a have a romantic
Can I come put my
rendezvous?
body on you? Yeah. Can my body touch your body?
Me naked, you naked.
You naked.
How do you feel about it?
I'm just like,
It's like, what? Easy.
you obviously are not a healthy human being if you've, one, paid close enough attention to notice that my photos are different.
Yeah.
And two, think that it's okay to present yourself in this way.
I can't lie. Like, I do feel like I notice weird things about that. Like I have one friend, just all of a sudden, not that she posted a lot, but all of a sudden her social media was just gone.
Yeah.
No, I messaged her, I texted her, but it wasn't like that. It was just like, hey, everything okay?
Yeah.
Like I legitimately just wanted to check on her or him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because for some reason I do pick up on random things, and then I just like people pleaser.
Yeah.
I just feel like I have to check on that person to make sure they're okay.
Yeah.
Like after I got done talking to you last night, I ended up messaging this person for probably another person for probably a couple hours because they were not okay.
Yeah.
You know, and she just really wanted somebody to vent to, and you know. That's just kind of how I am, I guess. Sometimes, again, to my own detriment.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I wouldn't really like to change that about myself, though.
I think that it has its boundaries. I think that it has its... I mean, I'm the same way. And I've now realized that, like, okay, like, this is how I feel after I overextend myself in that area. Yeah. I don't really like feeling this way. How can I just extend myself a little less, but also let that person know I care?
Find a happy medium.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think that's what life is about in general. Just realizing, you know, this is what is suitable for my life, and I shouldn't do that anymore. I should do more of this.
Right.
Yeah. And the only way you can keep track of that stuff is in a journal.
I must have a journal in my head.
Yeah, I mean, but honestly, like, if we're not taking inventory of these things, we're not learning. We're going to make the same mistakes. We're going to repeat our patterns. And it's just going to be messy.
Yeah, I have patterns I still need to break, but the relationship one and the way I dealt with the ending of a relationship is a pattern that I definitely focused on breaking, which is why I've been single for so long and not out doing what I used to do when I was single. I did manage to break that one. Now I have a couple other ones I need to break, and just because I have so many things that I want to do and accomplish. So, you know, I have to, maybe I've conquered that roadblock, and now I have to conquer a few more. Yeah. One step at a time.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we all could be a little bit more gentle on ourselves, especially right now too. Yeah. Like, the world is a weird place, and like attaching to that idea of that relationship, or maybe you're not listening to this for a completely different reason, but being okay with change is something that is not easy in general. No. And mixed with uncertainty can be kind of like chaotic. Yeah. So something that I've kind of like adopted recently is just, for some reason, the word pivot works well for me. Like,
I'm sorry, all I think about is Friends. There's an episode. It's an episode where Ross and Rachel are trying to carry this couch up a group of, like a set of stairs that it won't fit. He's just going, pivot.
I do remember that. I do remember that. But seriously though, like, apply that to your life right now. Yeah. It's okay to have to pivot. Yeah. Like,
well, it's not only is it okay, but there's a lot of times you're just going to have to. Yeah. Especially in times like now. Like, you're going to have to pivot.
Like,
you're going to have
adapt?
to find different avenues. Yeah. Like, honestly, I keep pouring myself more and more into podcasts. I need to focus on more, get better with the social media, especially because now is the perfect time. Like, we don't have as much of the regular content that people consume being produced. So it's a perfect time to dive into that. And, you know, me moving into the smaller house, I could have just dwelled and been sad about it and whatever. And, you know, there's still times where I go through that because I loved where I lived. It was better for my dogs, stuff like that. Yeah. But, you know, I'm like, all right, how do I turn this tiny house that the kitchen isn't even big enough to fit a refrigerator in into something I can live with.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and it turned out it was turn it all into a podcast studio and make sure it's not a house.
Exactly. And that's what works for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it, like, we get this like glamorous idea in our head that we have to have like a certain thing to be like successful, but like making the best of what you have right now and just agreeing with yourself to continue working on that best version in your head, like that's the work right there. Like that's the success.
Yeah. And lately I have this because I've got a lot of stresses in my life right now. Like, I don't know, money isn't what it used to be.
Yeah.
For me. Like, my income isn't what it used to be. So, you know, I'm like, man, am I going to have to turn in my car? And then am I going to be able to get another car? Because I pumped what little money I did have into fixing up this house a little bit because it was damn near unlivable.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I came to a realization that, like, man, if I didn't have that gigantic bill that I have for that car, and I did have to find jobs that were in walking distance, for some reason, all of a sudden I feel like at more peace with that.
Yeah.
Like, more basic. All of a sudden I have this feeling in me that, like, the more basic my life gets, like, the happier I think I will actually be.
Yeah.
Like, I told you earlier, like, I feel like I have a PlayStation that I play way too often, and I feel like I want to get rid of it. You know what I mean? And I probably should get rid of it. I'm hoping that I will follow through with that and get rid of it. But just the more I can break down my life to the simplest things that I want to do that I think are going to make me happy or make me a better person.
Yeah.
And I think breaking down my life and kind of starting over, even at 38, as terrifying as it sounds, seems in some ways way more relaxing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm diagnosed with severe anxiety disorder. And so when all this is going on, I'm thinking about the car, not having a car, and all that. It's going through the fucking roof. And then all of a sudden I think about what my life would actually be like and what the changes I would have to make, the pivots I would have to make.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, for some reason that just sounds way less stressful.
Yeah.
Like, it gives me less things that I have to worry about. And I can focus the worries that I had on these things onto the things I really want to focus on.
Yeah.
And so in some ways, I'm hoping my life completely falls apart. Weird.
So on that, like, to pull that, what you just said, into the topic of like breakups and pivoting and like being okay with where we are right now, like, I think that there's a couple things I want to say about that. So in a relationship, if everything that you just said, if you kind of apply that to a relationship and there are reasons that you want to stay and like make things work, and I'm not saying that anyone should or shouldn't break up with, you know, wherever you get. Yeah. Like, I do not know your life. Please do not take this as, well, Amanda said.
Yeah.
But like,
well, that's what I do.
That's what I do.
Amanda said start a podcast. I started a podcast.
You're not wrong. So you stay in a relationship because, like, you know, I should be doing this, and I'm 28. I should be having a family. I should do this. I should do this. And then you think about, like, well, what if I, like, all the things that you said, you know, walking to work sounds less stressful. Like, and you start to think about all these things and like, oh, like, maybe exiting the relationship feeling less stressed is what I need right now.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't think that you always should stay or you always should go. I think that has to be an intuitive feeling, and that's different for everybody.
And it's something I think where a lot of people mess up is they make knee-jerk reactions instead of actually sitting down with the problem and trying to actually think about it for a minute.
Yeah.
And I definitely think that's 100%.
And that's not easy.
Yeah.
It's not easy to sit with hard things.
No.
And actually make a choice for yourself.
Yeah.
That's based on
a thorough thought process.
Yeah. And sometimes knee jerk is what you have to do.
Yeah.
But I think that, you know, and then also speaking on, like, so if you do break up, like, I went through the thing of like, oh my God, I have to now find a place to live in a pandemic.
Yeah.
Where we might shut down and I might not have an income again. Like, all these pivots had to happen. And I was like, or I have the option to live with my parents again.
Yeah.
And at first it was like, no, just no, like no, and no.
Yeah.
Like, but then I was like, Amanda, like, stop thinking that you're not going to be good enough if you choose that.
Yeah.
You know, it's a hard thing to do when I haven't lived at home since I was 18.
Yeah.
Or actually 17. I moved out of my house right after high school.
Yeah.
And that was it. So for me to say I'm moving back in with my family at 28 was like, oh my God, like that hurts to swallow.
Yeah.
But then you think about it rationally and you think like, okay, like we're in the middle of this, maybe shut down, maybe not shut down.
A lot of question marks just in the world in general, let alone your own personal life.
What's going to be good for my sanity? How am I going to actually be able to process this? And that was to move back in with my dad, which by the grace of God, Dad has a finished basement and I have like my own little like studio apartment. And this is another thing I wanted to say about that. You said that those are the things that you want for your life and like you're like manifesting that. And I was like, in my head, I have always wanted to live in a studio apartment. Damn it, Amanda, you did this to yourself. I've always daydreamed about like, those swanky like New York studio apartments. They're just big enough for you, but just small enough to feel cramped.
But there's for some reason a distinct barrier for the bedroom area.
Yeah, and you also pee like in your living room, like
and hopefully a toilet.
Yeah, hopefully not the sink. But I was like, Amanda, you did this to yourself. You've always wanted this, and here it is. Yeah. Damn it! Be careful what you ask for. Yeah. So here we are. But I think that's it always goes so fast when we talk. We've been talking for an hour and a half now. Yeah. And I don't want to drag it out on everybody who's. Yeah, that hard thing that you're going through, it's
one, you're not alone.
Yeah, I think that's it. You're not alone. It sucks. And if you keep going in any kind of pace, it doesn't have to be quick, it doesn't have to be slow, whatever pace you need to go through it at, you're not alone. And I don't have like an official podcast email, but maybe I'll post my email with this podcast, and if you need a friend, you can email me.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
You should also, like, with that email, you can say, like, hey, is there a subject that you would like to be talked about?
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea.
I love that. Yeah.
What the hell was I going to say? And if you're going through situations, it is not a bad thing to lean on friends and family.
Ask for help.
Ask for help
Please
if you
ask
need it.
For help.
Like you are going to, you are at some point going to have to deal with things yourself, but that doesn't mean that you have to be alone through the whole process.
No, not at all. The amount of help that I've received in the last 12 days is more than I could have ever imagined that I would need in a time like this, and it's because I was honest and just said, hey, I need help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you just have to.
Yeah.
Honesty is the best policy, not just in like
hard,
don't
though.
Lie to people, like actually like just be open and honest.
Surprising how many ways you can be honest that you didn't think of too.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's weird. Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually how I got the girl that I was talking to last night to open up, is because she was like, I don't want to, like, this every, I don't know, few months she kind of hits me up like that, and she's like, I just feel like I'm like, I don't care. Like, here, I'll dump first. This is what's going on in my life. Yeah. And so I, dumped on her, and then it gave her the ability to unload. But yeah, I think it's really the most important thing is to have somebody you can talk to, whether it be professional, whether it be a friend, whether it be a family member.
Yeah.
It's sometimes the most important
all
thing.
of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes just a stranger. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, want to hear something?
Strangers don't work for me. I can't. No, I am not like.
You're talking to a lot of strangers right now.
But I'm not seeking help
I know.
I mean, we all end up helping each other in the long run, but like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a stranger person. I can't do that. It's weird.
Stranger
it's weird.
danger.
It's more like they have no idea who I am.
Yeah.
So they could be like, oh, yeah, F him. You never needed him. Like, no. Like, I still like him.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Like, you are useless to me. Go away.
Yeah. I think people so often think that people just need to hear, like, oh, he's an idiot and this and that. And sometimes that's not it.
No one. I mean, there are things that we do that are idiotic, but no one is an idiot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
one thing I was going to say, we both realized that we kind of, with the conversation we had the other night at Garden Grill, we realized that we both had this same idea of like a living situation with the warehouse apartment type thing.
Slightly different,
but very similar.
No, we can talk about that for a second.
Yeah, so maybe my idea was for a warehouse where either like a cheaply built wall or just some kind of barricade that's kind of like a studio apartment, like ropes off the bedroom area. But then is pretty much built for like what I want to do, like a podcast studio, a little bar area for people to hang out with during podcasts, and a place for my car, and just a warehouse built for the things that I want to do, basically. And then yours was,
I just want to buy some land, build a giant garage on it, like not giant, but like you know. Giant enough, a good size garage that has a loft like apartment upstairs, because I really don't need anything more than that. And then downstairs there's space for me to have my own garage gym, a place to park my everyday car, a place to park whatever toys Alira acquires, 4-wheelers, whatever she wants, whatever she's into,
right?
And then my RV that I take on all the trips I want to go on. And like what else does a girl need? Nothing.
Or a person need.
Maybe a jacuzzi.
Jacuzzi.
Yeah, maybe a jacuzzi. Maybe a back porch with a lake. Now I'm getting needy. Maybe a lake.
Hold on. I kind of want to steal the idea of the loft from you, but not like a whole apartment in the loft.
Maybe the back part of the garage is a bay for a boat. Maybe it's half over the lake.
Now you need a boat too?
Okay, I'm a little needy.
Does it have to be a houseboat?
No.
Okay, just a boat.
Just a yacht.
Just
I like to entertain people.
Just a small 3-bedroom yacht.
No big deal.
No big deal. Oh my God. But definitely things to look forward to. We're going to try to make it happen as quick as possible, but there are steps and things we have to go through. But there will be many masks with Amanda Gill coming at you soon. She is actually, we had talked about possibly doing it on the Gathering of Fools feed. She has decided to do her own feed, and you'll be able to find it under Many Masks when it comes up, and we will keep you updated on this podcast, and I'm sure she will keep you guys updated on her social media, which is
it's Amanda M. Gill on Instagram. There is a dot on either side of the M, and then I am just Amanda Gill on Facebook and something weird on TikTok. I don't know. Maybe I'll throw that at you later.
And other than that, do we have anything else?
No. Thanks for listening, guys, and hang in there. Keep going. It's going to be okay.
Yep. One foot after the other.
Yeah.
All right. Gathering Fools, we're out of here.